After conducting more than 1,000 interviews and reviewing more than 140,000 documents, the House committee investigating the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol will hold a live hearing for the very first time tonight in prime time. Now, the hearing will include new unseen footage from that day. The camera angle is shot by a British filmmaker who was with extremist groups like the Proud Boys. We'll also hear from a Capitol police officer who was seriously injured by rioters. Now, this is the first of 6 televised hearings. Some of the biggest bombshells could include: Number 1, taped testimony from Trump officials like his daughter Ivanka and her husband Jared Kushner. The hearing is expected to answer some really key questions, including what President Trump, his friends, and staff were doing on that day. Now, the committee is reportedly working, and this is new, with an ABC News television executive to help produce the primetime hearings. Most networks are going to carry it live, but not Fox News. Instead, the cable news network will air them on Fox Business if you're looking to find that out. So, will you be tuning in tonight to watch, or do you think these hearings are all just partisan theatrics? Go to dblvote.com to weigh in. Love to find out who's watching, who's not. Raise your hand if you're watching.
I'd like to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of watch.
Yeah, kind of watch.
Why do you say kind of? Because my thing is the last part you said, the theatrics. I want to know the truth of what happened that day. There's a lot of questions, a lot of conspiracies out there. Who did what and why and where were other people?
On both sides.
I want to answer all those questions, but I don't want it to be leaning one side. You know me, I'm not one side or the other. I want the truth of what happened that day. And if they start making it political theater, I'm going to turn it off.
If it's a documentary that you saw, again, from that British person, and you see it just as from the camera's point of view, would that make you feel more comfortable? You're glad they're doing it that way?
Yeah, but I don't want I don't want it leaning. I don't like that, right? Even when I watch news, when we have a story about politics, I'll turn on Fox News for a little bit. I'll turn on CNN for a little bit, right? And then make my own opinion, because it's two totally different stories.
Right. What do you think about this?
When I look at this, in a weird way, I think about the incredible 9/11 documentary that I watched, which you told me to watch, it was last winter. And the reason I bring that up is because everybody's seen a lot of the January 6th footage, just like, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of the 9/11 footage, and I didn't think I could learn anything more. And I was like, why was Tori telling me to watch a documentary about something that happened 20-some years ago? And then I saw the documentary and the footage they had, and just like how personal it was.
I'd never
looking
seen
at the
footage.
Firefighters' faces when they knew they were about to go. I mean, it was riveting, and in a bad way, but it was really jarring, and it was a different perspective. And I'm wondering if that's what we're going to get. We were kind of talking about it before the show, Jeff. I wonder if we're going to just see a totally different perspective, because they've had a year and a half to layer the video with the text messages, with the tours that were happening in the Capitol before that were kind of random with people. So I think maybe when we see it all laid out in like the final picture, I think it'll clear it up for a lot of people, because I feel like we've been getting chunks. They might be big chunks, but we've just been getting little chunks.
And just to back you up, Adam Schiff and Raskin, who are both representatives, are saying there's footage none of you have seen. There's footage that we are trying to get people, much like people who haven't seen any of it, we want to show them stuff you haven't seen, because we know what you think you know, and there have been some bombshells. There's going to be a number of bombshells more, is what they're saying.
I think that's what's going to help people, especially people like myself. I get very easily confused. There's so much information, and everyone's got a bias, right? Whether you're to the right or left, it all gets conflicted and messed up, and like we don't know what is real. When you've got footage that's been filmed firsthand, and you can experience it through your own eyes, and like you said, piecing together all these like little pieces of information that we didn't know, the text messages we didn't see, it's going to give a lot better rounded picture, and I think that's what we need.
I agree with you, and the only thing I'll say is, I'll say 2 things. One, I think they did this in prime time for a reason. I think the Mueller investigation was so boring that they realized they got to hire like an ABC producer. And then number 2, I think Trump really loves primetime television. So this is a direct hit on saying, you like primetime TV and TV ratings, we're going to show you. In my mind, this is a patriotic duty to watch. You've got to watch to find out what happened. If you have conspiracies on either side, I beg of you, watch this, because this is supposed to explain the investigation from an unbiased point of view, and if you don't, you're talking nonsense.
But do people ever go into a situation where they're going to be watching something on television and say, I want this explained from a non-biased point of view? I think you do, Jeff, but I think a lot of people
Yeah.
want to show. Look how successful Johnny Depp was. Look.
That's
We
why they're
still
doing
talk
this
about
way.
the OJ trial
Exactly.
because it was a show. The lawyers were actors, basically. OJ was literally an actor and a celebrity. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, actors, celebrities. Now, this is not going to have that. They may be some familiar faces, but I don't know if you can teach people without a show, unfortunately.
I don't want a show, Al. I don't want a show. I want the truth, right? And I was debating whether I should say this or not.
Please.
But when they came out, remember the 1-year anniversary, and like Kamala Harris came out, and everybody came out, and they're like, 9/11. All the tragedies that happened, and this tragedy, which was a tragedy, right?
People
The
died.
insurrection.
Cops died, yes.
Many? One.
6 people ended up dying from this tragedy.
Okay.
And there were
Right.
150 injuries.
Okay, but I understand. And people should go to jail, and if there's things covered up, they should go to jail. And this was a terrible, but to compare it to 9/11, okay, in my eyes, just a couple, whatever it was, and then use that as the same thing, to me, they're not the same thing. And you're already painting a story. Even though it's a tragedy and people should go to jail, and don't encourage any of that, that's not the point I'm trying to take. Not saying it's okay in any way. But the way the media came out and painted that picture was very biased. I believe on one side,
that
even though
turned you
people
off.
died.
And that turned
it
you off.
turned me off. So if that's like this, I
Do you know, it's an act of terrorism, though. Seriously.
It definitely is, Steph, and I don't want to put this lightly, like this wasn't a big deal, because it was.
Yeah.
But when you compare it to 9/11,
But they're both acts of terrorism. They're both where people lost their lives, that were innocent people that were just doing their jobs, that were just going about their everyday lives.
so when you listen, this is why I didn't want to say that. But if you go back in history and you talk about world wars and storming the beaches
Of Normandy.
and 9/11, this is in those. This is what you guys would put those on that list.
I will say this: since we're just saying,
insurrection.
since we're saying stuff that like we never thought we'd say. I honestly I don't think I don't think Mike Pence gets enough props for what he did. I mean, honestly, he really was the line. If he had held up the election and said that we needed to throw it back to the states, it's chaos at that point. We're never getting the election back. But it's so interesting that Mike Pence, because he really was what he said he was, I don't agree with Mike Pence on a lot of things, probably in the high 90%. But that day where he was literally, there were gallows and nooses with his name on it, literally, and he stood his ground and said, this is a fair and just election. I feel like after we're all dead and gone, he is going to be in the history books because he is the linchpin. If he backs off of that and Trump gets him to flip on that, and now all of a sudden we're recounting in Pennsylvania and Arizona, where we already saw the Arizona nonsense that was happening, and now all of a sudden we don't know who's president, we could have been thrown into crazy turmoil, but people don't want to give him props because Mike Pence isn't that popular with either side.
Let me finish up. Also, a Secret Service said to him, you need to get in the car and leave, and he refused.
Yeah.
Because he said it's more important to keep our democracy. I think it is up there.
And you do think it's up there?
I do.
You want to bring it that back?
No, I do. No, because I think.
But I just want the truth. I want the truth.
Right.
And
I
I
appreciate you
don't.
saying that,
And
man.
that's okay.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen Kamala Harris since then. I just want to point that out, too.
She's been hidden for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the vote. Will you be watching? 62% of you say yes. 38% of you say no. If you're an independent, it's just tune it in.
But surely you want to see. Surely you want to know what's going on.
Some people think it's just noise. To me, it's bigger than that. So write us in. We'd love to hear from you.